fallen. Fallen is Disney the Great. The mouse has become a dwelling place for cringe, a haunt for every unclean secularist agenda, a haunt for every flopbuster franchise, a haunt for every unclean and detestable remake. Yes, we know those lines, but now after we have faced so many fairy tale adaptations, flippant super capers, and the adrift vessels of stalled wars, how could we restore Disney?
Speculative fiction, like no other genre, reflects the creativity of God.
If you look at the scriptures, you're going to have to see that God uses imagination more than rational discourse.
We are supposed to be image bearers for a vastly creative God.
Reading fantastical fiction opened a portal in my imagination for a place other than just a materialistic world.
I experienced the gospel story with the mind of someone who loved adventure and loved the idea of light conquering darkness.
We're wired for stories that reflect how we see the world in ways that are true.
The story is either pointing to Christ or it's pointing to our need for Christ.
Welcome to the kingdom of Fantastical Truth, this podcast from Lorehaven.com, whose mission is to explore fantastical stories for God's glory. I am E. Stephen Burnett, the king of Lorehaven, publisher, really, co-host of this podcast, Fantastical Truth. And I'm not necessarily a stan of the Snow White live-action remake. I know it's a real hot take for you, but I did write a novel which released last month, a sci-fi novel called Above the Circle of Earth.
And I'm Zackary Russell, and I'm looking up in the sky, and that's no moon. Wait, that's a giant mouse-shaped space station, and it's shooting laser beams out of its eyes, and we're all dead. Yes, I know that's how a lot of us feel, and we are going to try to talk more positively in this episode 258. How could we restore Disney film franchises?
Zach, that needs to be the clip on social media. I don't think you've ever quite made that sound before. Disney brings some startling reactions out of its former fans and even folks who hope that they will straighten up and fly right, which is what we hope that they will. Zach and I haven't really talked about the whole Disney problem, at least not for several episodes. We haven't done it since episode 199, where we had on guest Joshua Shepard to talk about how should Christians fight to love a declining Disney. So this episode is a spiritual sequel to that one. The decline has continued apace until morale improves, and my morale has anti-improved. I'm not a Disney stan, still not doing anything right, it seems, except possibly for Andor. Now, Zach, I finally watched some Andor episodes, and now I'm woke to it. Okay, I see where you were coming from. A little slow at the beginning, but I, unlike some impatient folks, am perfectly fine just to let things simmer a little bit until the rebellion cuts loose in episode 3. Oh, spoiler alert. Guys, if you found the first two episodes slow, just keep going. It really picks up in episode 3, and then we're on to some really good stuff. And season 2, that trailer, as the kids say, that was a banger trailer for season 2. I'm looking forward to season 2 once I finish season 1.
I mean, the season 2 trailer has itself become a meme because of the rock and roll music they put in it. I've seen all these versions now of clips from Rogue One with like 60s
I've missed
music.
Those. Okay. That's kind of groovy.
It's become like its own genre of trailer. So it's I really like Andor. I've got it on Blu-ray and the Steelbook collector's edition because I got rid of the streaming service and I'm just gonna buy what I actually like.
Andor is on disc release. That's
yes.
Right.
Yep.
I should go ahead and get that as a sign of good faith. All right. I mean, that's the final word of the best new Star Wars Disney movie.
Yes.
Rogue One is hope. Yes, it's kind of an AI Princess Leia who says it, but you don't really notice. And it follows after an amazing Darth Vader wipes out everybody scene that's famous for being just awesome.
Just a
retro
horror movie.
Awesome.
Yeah. And look, I admit I was very skeptical going into Andor because I'm like, wait, this is the prequel of a prequel? Like the backstory of a backstory?
Yeah, we're not supposed to like Star Wars prequels. Isn't that the kind of the whole lesson we learned in the early hundreds? Yes.
Yeah. So I think Andor has proven that if you get the right creators in
Tony
place,
Gilroy, say his name.
They can do a good job And hopefully that means other people were less involved, and we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, there's some good Kennedys, y'all, and then there's some bad Kennedys, okay? But speaking of appreciation for things retro, last week I published a retro review of a sci-fi novel by a Christian author called Ice. Very interesting novel. Characterization, basically non-existent. Cool space mysteries and a different take on a different kind of genre that you don't expect to be crashing into a science fiction alternate history. Pretty great. And we got more reviews coming up. We publish them weekly every Friday at Lorehaven when we can. Subscribe free, get your own, the best Christian-made novels in fantastical genres that we have found and reviewed. The reviews are getting longer, by the way, Zach. It's been interesting to kind of test that format just a little bit to see what will best serve our readers, because as Disney is ruining itself, apparently failing to heed the lessons of its own songs to believe in yourself. That's an interesting irony there. But as they're doing that, more and more readers, Christians and otherwise, are looking for different stories, wholesome stories. We got them covered at Lorehaven because they're coming from all kinds of different creatives. That is our mission, to find the best stories for you at Lorehaven, for you and your family. And that includes sponsors such as this one for our podcast, Sponsor One, Enclave Publishing. Good friends there. They're my publisher too. They've got a new novel coming out from Lisa T. Berggren. It is book 3 in this series, and it is called Fathoms. Lisa T. Berggren, releasing on April the 22nd. So just next week. So you can read that real quick and then watch Andor season 2 premiere that evening. Can the she-wolves of Siena survive the lion's den? Oh, here's some Italian names here. Let's hope I get them right. Luciana Betterini is living a nightmare. Blinded in battle, she is unsure what her future holds. When Lady Tiliani Forelli volunteers to serve as the young Lady Romano's governess in order to protect the child, Luciana quickly follows suit, volunteering as a tutor. But as they navigate life in the treacherous neighboring Castello, they find Lord Ercole, a chameleon of adversaries, intent on mastering the she-wolves of Siena any way he can. Together, Luciana and Tilani must find a way to bring Ercole down and buy time for Domenico and Marcello to establish new allies. But Luciana continues to find herself at a crossroads. Is she willing to risk leaving Sir Guilo Greco forever in order to chase healing through the time tunnel? Or is she called to accept her plight in light of the myriad blessings of her new medieval life and make her way through the best she can? Enclave Publishing presents Fathoms, Book 3 in the Oceans of Time trilogy by Lisa T. Berggren, best-selling author of the Rivers of Time series. It is available April 22nd wherever fantastic books are sold. Ask for Fathoms at your favorite bookseller or your local library, or order it online at Amazon or at enclavepublishingstore.com. It's also available as an audiobook from Oasis Audio. You can see that info in our show notes for this episode 258. For the complete archive for all the sponsors we'll mention in this episode, go to lorehaven.com/podcast. Zach, I'm ready for realm makers, okay? When the big corporations are dropping the ball and not believing in themselves, even on secular, humanist, American civil religion terms, I'm ready to go hang out with people who believe in Jesus and want to make amazing stories. And there's going to be a whole slew of them at the Realm Makers Expo conference this July 18th through 20th in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Now, Realm Makers, we talk about it a lot here. No doubt you've already heard of it. It's a writers' conference led by Christians for people who want to create these kinds of stories. And they're doing that again this year, have been doing it annually since 2013. But now it's also a fan expo, which is incredible. Because now I get to say that Lorehaven will not have a table there as we always do. Lorehaven will have a booth, which is a nice little expansion as we expand from the reach of creators talking to and training and discipling one another to make great stories, often for God's glory. But we're also going to be contacting more fans, readers of these stories, folks who are not just interested in books, but are interested in TV shows and gaming and board gaming and all kinds of amazing partners here. They got N.D. Wilson, they got S.D. Smith, they got other guys with initials, they got folks who work for gaming companies. It's going to be across all kinds of different media, faithful Christians and allies sharing the best of stories that they've got. Stuff you may have heard of, stuff you may have not heard of. So, Zach, I'm really looking forward to going. I've got my tickets for the booth. I've got my hotel booked already. You can get more information at expo.realmmakers.com.
I'm really looking forward to being there. You mentioned allies. There's a lot of people that come, don't necessarily know their background, but they enjoy the community there. They enjoy the atmosphere of Realmmakers. I think it's very unique in terms of writers' conferences. Number one, I think it's one of the most affordable ones, unless you're going to something in your hometown. And number two, it's a Christian conference, but it's also open to a lot of people. It's fantasy and sci-fi. Most Christian writers conferences, you're kind of the odd man out if you're the sci-fi writer, the fantasy writer. So this is where we all find our home. I'm looking forward to the classes I'll be taking with Donald Moss, who's a literary agent, just talking about what makes, scenes and openings of books really powerful and interesting. Stephen, as you said in the opening with Andor, you do have to kind of get through a few episodes for it to really get going. And man, isn't that true of a lot of books that we read? We're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to struggle through chapter 3 and 4 and 5.
Because my friend told me it was really good later on.
Yeah. It's like, wouldn't it be great if you could just open a book? It's like, oh, wow. Like the first page, you're like, boom, I'm in this book. I'm hooked and I can't wait to find out what happens. And so that's what Donald Moss will be teaching about. And I think, man, the more of that we can get out there, the better.
Well, the more people we can get attending this conference too, the better. And so that means that in theory, it appeals to a much wider audience. Zach, I think it's sometimes a little easy, almost too easy, to get writers fired up, sometimes by selling their dream back to them. Writers talking to other writers can become an echo chamber, and you can kind of forget about the fans out there. And that's the space that Lorehaven is with. And now that's the space increasingly for the Realmmakers bookstore, for the Realmmakers Expo. I think people who enjoy fantastical stories are more likely to create them as a hobby, even if they don't have serious professional aspirations. And so it kind of appeals to everybody there. But I'm glad that you're going to the writers' side. I'm not going to the writers' conference this time, but because I got to be at the booth now. I've got books to share. I've got autographs to sign, and we do have quests to put together for the Lorehaven booth. We had a developmental version of those quests last year at the conference in St. Louis, and now we're going to level them up. So we look forward to revealing more about that on this podcast for the Ready for Realmmakers segment going forward. All right, well, that's enough positivity. Let's get negative. It's good for clicks, and we don't mean to be doing clicks because this is still meant to be positive. I have here in front of me a punch list for Chapter 1, How to Unmake Unmagical Disney Remakes. Now, I'm going to presuppose a few things here. We know the Snow White remake flopped on its poor little face, all right? I'm kind of at the point now where I want to say, stop, she's already dead, and the non-prince isn't coming to awaken her, and neither is the fandom. I almost feel a little sorry for this thing because a lot of people worked on this movie as kind of reminded me by the son of the producer or the PR guy or something who posted a short-lived comment on social media saying, yeah, my dad had to go to New York City to talk some sense into the actress because she kept mixing politics with her promotions of the movie on social media. And like this $100 million project with thousands of people whose lives and careers are on the line, and that just won't do. You sign a contract not to do that sort of thing. You literally had one job. Don't mix politics with your promotion for the movie. That doesn't mean actors can't say things controversial, but they generally don't say it while they're promoting the movie. That's just silly. So much talk has been made about the flop of Snow White and a bunch of other remakes and animated films. What was it? Just a couple of years ago, there was Wish, and then there was all kinds of stuff. And I think we talked about that with Joshua Shepard. And there's another angle too, is that Disney's getting a lot of shellacking on the theme park side. Zach, that's one of my little special interests. Is I haven't even been to Disney World since the mid 2000s, I think, family vacation, and I don't plan on going back anytime soon. But they announced like a bunch of $1 billion investments for their Walt Disney World resort in Orlando, and people do not like that. They're gonna bulldoze the riverboat and put in a bunch of cars on a dirt track or something, and people are just not happy about it. Like, and everyone's saying like, hey, Disney, read our lips. No one wants this. And this isn't a political conflict. This isn't culture war conflict. This is just fans feeling betrayed by the company, by the fantasy land that they have come to appreciate. So we kind of take that as for granted here. Now I'm ready to move on to the next stage. Okay, let's say Zach and I, we get an Infinity Gauntlet and we want to share. One of us gets a snap to undo everything that's bad about Disney and make things right, well, the first thing I would do is snap and put to rest that issue we talked about last week with this whole idea of Aslan being voiced by a female performer. Hopefully, by the time you hear this episode, listener, that's already been cleared up. That would be nice for that episode to age like milk, but I suspect the controversy is still been unaddressed by the release date of this episode, tax day in the United States, by the way. Happy tax day. So first, I'd undo that. But next, okay, let's say that I snap my fingers and within the boundaries of reason and without erasing the past, while also respecting everybody's non-disclosure agreements where they're not allowed to talk shade about people they've worked with because they signed on the dotted line not to do that. Let's say that instead, Disney did do those terrible things to Star Wars and the princesses and all of that, and really and seriously wants to make things right. All right. I got some tips for you. And I'm sure Zach has some tips too. So here's some steps for the Disney Corporation to specifically address the remake problem, the live action asterisk remake, because the Lion King's just animated again, you guys, that's not really animated. What could they do to undo that?
Let me jump in there. And many others have observed this, so this is not my original thought, but the biggest problem with the Disney live action remakes is they can't decide on a creative direction. They're always playing tug of war between two sets of variables. And one axis of these variables is, do we make this a shot for shot remake?
Just copy the original, right? Yeah.
Or do we make this a totally different looking visual story? And I think either one of those actually could work. But the problem is they combine both of these methods, and that doesn't work. Because if you start out shot for shot, the fans are going to go, oh, this is just like that scene. This is just like that scene. Oh, I remember this. I've watched this, millions of times. Like, I know exactly what's going to happen next. Oh, but wait, what happens next is totally different. And everyone looks different and nothing is playing out the same way that I remember. So it's really disorienting. It's the uncanny valley effect of like, it's almost realistic enough. It's almost human enough, but it's just enough wrong that you're it causes revulsion. But if they had gone in the totally different visual story direction where everything looks unique and it's its own thing, then it's like, okay, I can respect that. Maybe this is not my thing. Maybe this is someone else's thing, but at least it's its own creation. It's not doing this back and forth thing. So that's one dimension. But the other dimension is on the story level. Are they going to be faithful to the story, or are they trying to tell a new story? And usually what it means, they say words like, oh, we're reimagining. Well, that we've come to realize now that means subvert. They are deconstructing it. They are taking away the symbolic meaning, the traditional values that were part of the original story. They're trying to put in new values. Again, it's this whole cultural revolution thing that we've talked about many times. And you can't mix that with, we're going to stay faithful to the original, because those are entirely different audiences. There's an audience that wants a faithful adaptation, and then there's an audience that wants a retelling, but a similar retelling. And then there's a whole other audience that wants a subverted retelling, a deconstructed retelling. None of those are the same people. Those are entirely different audience members. And I'm sorry, you can't please them all. You have to choose which one you're going to please, and stop acting like you were respecting the original fans when you're clearly not. You're chasing after the cool kids that want everything to be ironic and cynical and torn down. And Disney cannot have this design by committee approach to all these things.
So those are all negative statements, like stop doing this, stop doing this, stop doing this. All true. I would like to posit some ideas, because I try to challenge myself. While I'm critiquing this Disney stuff, I try to challenge myself. It's like, well, you're a grumpy fan or a former fan. What would actually make you happy? And so if I don't have an answer for that, okay, well, here's what they could do to make me happy. Then I think the criticism ends up being rather shallow and possibly kind of self-motivated. You can now monetize your hate and make a nice living for yourself saying naughty things on YouTube. And I enjoy those videos sometimes too, but yeah, you got to move beyond those.
Yeah, I mean, my personal preference would be a shot-for-shot faithful retelling. I think also that's the least controversial way they could do this and win trust with fans is because, okay, how easy is it now to go to an AI tool and turn a photograph into an anime? You know, there was this whole Studio Ghibli craze for like a day a few weeks ago where any picture imaginable could be turned into a Studio Ghibli style anime.
Yes, Philistines is what they are. A bunch of Philistines.
Oh, come
Philistines
on, it's fun.
go down. Philistines go
It's
down at the end of
fun.
House of David. Nope. I am David versus Goliath. I don't like Philistines. They're nasty.
Yeah, I saw this one hilarious quote that it quoted where it said Joshua then burned all the idols of AI.
Yeah, I'm glad everyone else caught up to my joke. I made that one up early, and now it's gone viral. Sure. Y'all a bunch of Christians 5 years late, evangelicals.
Yeah, so but look, I think it's like a house of mirrors. Ultimately, you wouldn't want to live in a house of mirrors, but it's fun to kind of walk into a house of mirrors for a few minutes, and you're like, "Wow, this is crazy."
Yeah, until Miyazaki comes after you with a katana.
Yeah. Well, the other funny thing that you could do with this tool is you could take an anime, like a meme or something, and you could turn it into a photograph. And so the funniest example I saw of this was the "This is fine" dog, like the dog that's like sipping coffee while everything burns down around him.
Right.
And someone made that into like a live action dog, like in live action fire.
A live action remake of a meme. Yeah.
Right. So that was kind of funny, but it's like, okay, but my point here is everyone can do this now. Everyone can make these kinds of photo realistic remakes using an AI tool. So everyone, okay, there's some grumpy people, but most everyone that's at least making these think, oh, this is great. Like, look at what we can do. Disney is leaving money on the table by not doing this, by going after this totally different visual remake or this totally different retelling. Golly, they can make bazillions of dollars by just doing the shot-for-shot faithful remake, because if they don't do it, fans are going to do this with AI.
Oh, so Zach, I didn't expect a debate show at this time, but I am entirely opposed. I'm entirely opposed. And here's why. Shot-for-shot remakes do not work. What is the point of that? Just keep the animated original. I favor 0 remakes over a shot-for-shot remake. The problem is that whether or not it's a mix of shot-for-shot versus something original, the problem is, A, they can't do the shot-for-shot part right anyway, and B, the original stuff sucks. All right, almost everybody agrees the original stuff in the Snow White remake is terrible, and it kind of started actually with the Maleficent alternate universe take on Beauty and the Beast. I might say more about that in just a moment. Disney can't clear everything that they've done. There's lots of people who worked on this stuff. They can't apologize. That would be even more cringe, especially for a corporation. But how can they get back in its good graces? I say don't do shot-for-shot remakes. I say stop the remakes. Stop. And by the way, they were listening because I wrote these notes before a few days ago when Disney said, okay, that Tangled live action remake that we were going to do from The Greatest Showman director, which by the way, didn't sound that bad. They put a stop to it.
Oh, I was sad to read that.
Okay. I was interested, but come on. What are we, fools? Like,
I don't trust them at all right now.
Big mouths for talking about the Death Star with ears. No, I don't want them doing that. But at least it was a newer movie, and folks weren't going to ruin it as badly as Snow White, because Snow White is from a completely different era. I say halt all remakes after the Lilo and Stitch one, which I think is the last one they have really seriously in the production pipeline. And then, by the way, Disney, just to show absolute mea culpa, halt all Disney branded movies after Lilo and Stitch. Instead, take a break like Marvel did with its TV shows last year, 2024. Take a break and re-release and celebrate the Disney legacy films exclusively in theaters. This is the moment, Disney, if you're listening, okay? Give you this one for free. People say that they want good movies in theaters again. People always say in their memes and comments, why didn't they just re-release the original in theaters? That would have made bank. Okay, so Disney, do it. and do it less expensively. It's kind of out the secret that Disney is owning the theaters with some rather strong arm tactics. Push back on that, Disney. Say, hey, this is going to be a discount showing. We want people to go to your theater, like, think globally, act locally, support your local theaters, make it about that. Do it a Fathom event or make it an official release, whatever. Not a cheap re-release either. Presentation matters. The point is not to be a cash grab. It may be a little cash grab, but to show goodwill and to show, by the way, as I mentioned earlier, a Disney healthy pride. I'm literally calling for you to better follow a secular virtue here, okay? Believe in yourself, Disney. Believe in what's inside, the passion that's within you. Like, Disney, be a girl boss. Stop being so ashamed of yourself. Stop being ashamed of who you are. Sing the Frozen song and then actually take it seriously, and then own the movies that you've made. The movies that you love, that lots of fans love. This can kind of, by the way, disarm the whole, wow, Disney's really embarrassed of its own legacy and wants to revise it canard.
Okay, well, I have breaking news as we record this. This just dropped less than an hour ago. Disney announced a new Tron movie called Tron Ares coming out on October 10th. It looks so cyberpunk, like light cycle in downtown somewhere and all this cool imagery.
It's a sequel or a reboot? I still haven't seen.
No, this is like I think the third movie in the new Tron
okay,
series.
so it's a sequel. So it's a sequel to Tron Legacy.
Yeah, or I guess a sequel.
Now everybody likes the Daft Punk music. Did they get those guys back?
Man. I mean, that soundtrack was unbelievably cool. So
that's
look, I'm there for it. Tron is one of those things where it was never really my fandom, so I just kind of like the Tron movies just because they look cool. But I don't have too much. Tron Uprising was the other one that came out in 2012. So yeah, this is the third movie, I think.
I thought it was called Tron Legacy.
Tron Legacy was 2010. Tron Uprising 2012. Wait, Tron the Next Day 2011.
Wait, there was a third movie? I thought it was just the second one.
Maybe these were. Was this a short film or something? Look, I'm not up on the Tron verse, but Tron Ares looks really cool. So apparently Disney was not listening to this when they decided they will be releasing this October 10th. That's all I know at this point. It's a new movie. It's not a remake. It's a continuation. So at least it's not a prequel. It's not a backstory of a backstory.
Okay, so cut all Disney branded movies after Lilo and Stitch and after this Tron thing. And by the way, I don't mean Star Wars movies, although they've already cut those anyway. Just again, this is just the same strategy, y'all. Your Star Wars movies bombed in theaters. Your princess remake movies bombed in theaters. So stop making princess movies that bomb in theaters. Like, go back to the drawing board. Think about it. And the same thing with Marvel. Just do it again with the remakes.
Tron Uprising, sorry, was an animated TV series. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So it's one of those spinoffs. Hey, and speaking of streaming series, people don't like that the Disney Plus pricing is so high. So cut prices. Disney for Disney Plus, cut prices for your theme parks, trim, go Doge the place, whatever you can. I don't mean bulldoze the place. Fans don't want that happening at the theme park, but Doge the administrative level, cut some costs, get with the trend here, and then start earning back those fan goodwills. And by the way, that means you delete and not just modify all those content warnings on Disney Plus. Now, Zach, I checked. Turns out earlier this year, they toned down the language of those whole wow, our own movie is really racist. And okay, there may be some racist bits in there, but that's a great opportunity for people to be pop culture parents, right? Equip parents and show some healthy self-respect. But I think you can get rid of those warnings. All right. I don't mean putting Song of the South on there and maybe you say something about the crows in Dumbo or the Native Americans in Peter Pan. But otherwise, guys, just move on. Don't be so cringe about yourself. Believe in yourself. Listen to the princess song. Okay, that's what not to do, Disney. I have a few other tips, and then Zach, I want to hear any more of yours, specifically about the remake problem. All right. Here's what you do, Disney, more constructively. And some of this may feel a little political, but guess what, Disney? You need a little political-ish energy going back the other direction, okay? Follow the vibe shift and add new programming on Disney Plus to honor expressions of traditional values, to honor people from different political and religious worldview perspectives. Now, I think they may have already gotten a good start with this. I think My wife and I sneaked into Disney Plus to watch a Sleeping Beauty, or maybe it was something else right around January. And it may have been a Hulu tie-in or something, but they seem to have a video up for the inauguration of President Donald Trump. And I think I took a photo of it, and I may have posted it and saying, wow, what's going on? Like, here's Trump not looking like, Darth Donald on Disney Plus. It's a different kind of Donald on Disney Plus. So that's a good step. Not because you have to be Trump fans, but because you're respecting those who are, and just showing respect for your fans as well as yourself. But on top of that, Disney, hey, why not join in with some civil religious or civil ceremonial events, especially coming up in the United States for next year's quadricentennial in 2026? Join in with some of that stuff that America is apparently going to do. Like, tie in with the whole Walt Disney Loves Americana legacy. Do something with the Hall of Presidents. Cancel those plans to bulldoze the rivers of America, but then also celebrate Rivers of America in your Frontierland side of the Magic Kingdom theme park. See, I speak Disney. At least I speak Disney as of the late 2000s. Have ad campaigns, like public awareness ad campaigns, not just dragging people to your magical theme park, and have stories specifically about traditional families. That's another thing getting lost here too. Is this whole idea of Disney creators putting in the not so secret gay agenda. That's when it really started to go downhill. People caught up to where some Christians and Baptists were in the 1990s and went, wait a minute, they've been having gay day at the parks all along. And they're make-believing that these different definitions of family are the new definition. That's not cool. I'm not taking my kids to see Disney movies anymore. The Disney, like, you don't have to throw people under the bus or apologize or push back too far the other way, but celebrate traditional families in ad campaigns and then in your movies. Oh, and a bonus suggestion here. I realize that Muppet Vision 3D at the Disney MGM Studios theme park is kind of showing its age, and you might want to put in some Monsters Incorporated stuff. All right, I get it. But if you're going to do that, adapt the whole presentation. The last Muppet show that Jim Henson filmed before his death, release all of the Muppet Vision 3D Legacy show on streaming. I think Josh Shepard, our previous guest, would be especially a fan of that idea.
Okay, so here is my constructive idea. They should make more Muppet versions of frankly anything, because I don't think there could be a bad Muppet parody of a movie. And
public domain stuff, I imagine.
Well,
or Star Wars.
Disney has enough money to get the rights to whatever it wants.
IP, that's true.
And a couple of years ago, there was a rumor going around that The Princess Bride was going to get a remake, and fans were lit up about this.
I think that was just fan fiction, though.
Well, who knows with these studio rumors, what's really going on, but...
Oh, that's true. Like we talked about last week.
Right. But there was a hilarious meme where it's like, this is the only Princess Bride remake I will accept. And it was like all Muppets, but Cary Elwes was like the grandpa. And that would actually be really funny. Like, really, I don't care. Take any movie you want. I mean,
that would be very wholesome.
And again, this is where the whole AI thing comes in, because I saw people make AI versions of a Muppets remake of Alien. That would also be really funny. Anything would be funny with Muppets.
So, Zach, this kind of suggestion runs into a little theory I've been putting together that I might call the Pizza Hut problem. And I haven't had time to develop this, so of course I'm going to go ahead and say it on the podcast. I see memes where a lot of people will post photos of Pizza Hut nostalgia from the 90s or 80s with the red cups and the menus and the Pac-Man arcade machine stuck in the corner and the salad bar and all of that. And they will say, man, why can't we go back to that kind of Pizza Hut? And that has set me on this little goal, wondering, is there a Pizza Hut still out there that gives you sort of that experience? And if so, would people know that? Or do they just sit there on social media saying, man, why can't we go back? Those were the days. And then you run into the advice of the preacher from the book of Ecclesiastes saying, do not say, why were the good old days better than these? For it is not wise to ask such questions. Now, maybe all the Pizza Huts have turned into carryouts, if they exist at all. And my theory gets disproven. But my thought is that human nature would sit there and say that they want these things and then not actually show up when someone makes them. For example, someone made there was a couple of really wholesome Muppet movies in theaters just within the last 15 years or so. And the first one did okay. My wife and I went and saw it in theaters. We enjoyed it. And the second one was also pretty good. And we went in theaters and enjoyed it. And it kind of flopped. And so you haven't really seen the Muppets in theaters after that because they tried it and people did not show up.
What
so that
was
makes
the
me
titles
wonder,
of that?
Muppets Most Wanted was the second one. And the first one was just called The Muppets. And that one was, that was even, there was a lot of memes and the songs were really catchy. And I liked it. And it was so wholesome. It was exactly what you would hope the Muppets would do. It was Amy Adams and some guy named Jason, I forget, who was like a Vulgarian comedian who went wholesome this one time. I liked those.
I don't think the Muppets works as its own fandom, at least not anymore.
They did under Jim Henson, though, or they just exist as a zombie franchise to parody other franchises, though.
I'm saying it would work as a parody franchise. It's a similar thing with the Minions. The Minions are hilarious in a Despicable Me movie. They're kind of tedious when it's their own movie, like the Minions, whatever, Take Manhattan. The Minion standalone movies, I frankly don't really enjoy. My kids love them because they like anything with Minions, but I'm not interested, so I'm not going to take my kids to the theater to see a new Minions movie, but we'll go see them when they're a side character. And I think that's a similar thing with the Muppets. It's like a Weird Al version, you know. It's just funny when it's like a remake, but it's a tongue-in-cheek remake. It's not meant to be a serious remake. It's just supposed to be funny.
So I'm going to resolve this one and then offer a final point, and then we'll move to the next chapter because we've strayed from the original topic here, what to do with all those live action remakes. So here we go, y'all. Do a live action remake of Snow White, but featuring only the Muppets.
Yeah. Okay.
Disney, that's how you win all of us. And it's a bit of an apology, without throwing people under the bus. So that would be one solution for you. Another one, Disney, is get back Sir Kenneth Branagh for crying out loud. Who, by the way, did not do a shot-for-shot remake of Cinderella. And so that's my kind of late-breaking argument there. It wasn't meant to be. He went back to the roots of the fairy tale. He fleshed it out. He made the prince an actual character. He found some different but complementary themes from the original Disney classic and respected it. You even saw a few cutaway shots for the mice, which don't do a lot of talking. And that's perfectly fine. Frankly, I love the live-action version of Cinderella from 2015 better than the animated version. Gasp, gasp, gasp. Because the animated version is basically cat and mouse cartoons, also guest starring Cinderella. So I don't have a rosy view of all the original Disney stuff. Some of it could use a remake. So I'm perfectly fine with Cinderella. I'm fine with Pete's Dragon. Aladdin wasn't too bad either. But Disney, just knock it all off. Go back to the drawing board and come back later when you have some better ideas and people who understand the spirit of the original classics, even before their original Disney animated versions. Well, while we're waiting on Disney to get its act together, let's go to books by Christian authors that are often original stories, such as Sponsor 2, Here Lieth by Johanna Frank, a new fantasy, an extraordinary blend of Christian-made fantasy and historical adventure. Discover this tale of redemption, courage, and destiny. Step into the pages of Johanna Frank's Here Lieth. When a young soul faces the journey of life, the forces of darkness and light clash for the ultimate prize, his destiny. With rich, vivid storytelling and a message of hope, Here Lieth invites readers to explore themes of faith, sacrifice, and the power of choice. Perfect for fans of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, this gripping novel will captivate fantasy lovers and inspire hearts. Don't just read a story, experience a journey. Get a copy of this, Here Lieth, first in-series novel, now, and embark on an unforgettable adventure by Johanna Frank. See all those links in our show notes for Here Lieth. And stay tuned for Chapter 2. And we may need to do this one in brief, Zach, because we've already turned this episode into a Stan account, a Stan platform for Andor. So I actually have a little more hope, believe it or not, for Star Wars than I even have for the Disney princess side of things. Chapter 2, how do we repair the stalled Star Wars saga? So Zach, I got to ask you this one straight off. Let's keep it brief. Did Kathleen Kennedy retire or not? Is this another Michael Jordan retirement of hers? Or what in the world is going on there? What in the wonderful world of Disney is happening there?
Well, what was really interesting was when those rumors started. I mean, those rumors have been going around for a while, but there was actually a statement that she put out, and I'm quoting this from memory, where she said, well, she's going to stick around for a year to kind of help
I love making movies.
Her replacement, get settled in and everything.
Always there are two.
Yes, exactly. So she's going to continue her influence on Disney. So that's just great.
So one step Disney Star Wars can do to earn back fan goodwill is just give Kathleen Kennedy, bless her heart, her own gold C-3PO watch and send her off like they did with Jennifer Salke at Amazon Prime Studios with a nice little adjunct consulting position, which is a nice way of saying so long and thanks for all the flops. This needs to keep happening. This needs to keep happening. So who gets Star Wars instead, Zach? Think positively. Why not Tony Gilroy? The showrunner, wasn't he the director of Rogue One and the showrunner now of Andor seasons 1 and 2?
I think
which,
he
by the
did
way,
a great job.
Season 2 is the finale. That's it. We're connecting now with Rogue One. Yet you get to see who's the chap played by Forrest Whitaker. Like this was like the best version of apparently bringing back the Star Wars animated characters. Right, guys. Here's where I can be the normie, and I'm not just playing one for the podcast. I am a normie. I haven't seen all the Star Wars animated stuff. I'm more of a casual fan of Star Wars, but I see the enthusiasm that the true fans have for Andor, like Zach, who's a true Star Wars fan who had the action figures growing up and all the rest of it. And I like that energy. I feel like there is a healthy fandom there that I would love to be a part of. And I enjoyed Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2. If Tony Gilroy can't do it and Jon Favreau is not busy, give it to him. I don't think he's to blame for firing Gina Carano, for example. I think that was a decision made over and against his interest. But do something like that. Star Wars it deserves a better master. Ignore or quickly wrap up the plots from Star Wars shows that were utter failures. Make more Star Wars stuff like Andor, which, by the way, Zach, I mean, that's kind of what I wanted Rebel Moon to be, and Rebel Moon kind of fizzled for me. Like this, as you said, this is the kind of Star Wars storytelling I want. It's gritty, it's challenging, it's not subversive, but it is still nonetheless challenging. And I'm only 4 episodes into Andor season 1, or is it 5? I forget. I stopped it and realized, well, I need to go back and watch these with my wife, and then we need to just finish the whole thing. So I'm looking forward to this. I want more sincere Star Wars. No, not so secret gay agenda, no lesbian space witches, none of that absolute silliness from people who seem trendy that apparently get a pitch through and then fans absolutely despise it and hate watch it at best on the internet. But perhaps the most important step here, I think, is rehire Gina Carano.
Oh, absolutely.
Rehire this woman. Like that is where it really started to go downhill for Star Wars.
Yeah.
Where you realize it was being hijacked by the dark side of the agenda. And like she wasn't doing the Snow White actress thing and mixing these culture war stuff with her Star Wars promotion. She was doing this on her own time with her own platforms. She didn't say, hey, go see season 2 of Mandalorian, watch Cara Dune, kick butt. And oh, by the way, here's a little political shout out I'd like to do for my homies. She didn't do that. The Snow White lady did. And Disney, you do need to hire her back. You need to settle out of court. And you need to hire her back as a show of goodwill. And you do need an apology for this, a written apology from the corporation, if not the people who actually fired her. Kathleen Kennedy probably. Rehired Gina Carano, restart the whole Cara Dune plotline.
Yeah, well, and honestly, fire the person who fired Gina Carano. We need a Book of Esther story arc here in real life. Like, the the people that tried to get rid of her should be gotten rid of instead. That would go a long way to restoring trust in fans. Now, here's another constructive thing they could do. They should adapt Timothy Zahn's Thrawn series as movies. I know they've tried to put Thrawn and some of the other IP, the Star Wars IP. I'm not following everything because I canceled Disney Plus a while ago.
It wasn't the Ahsoka show or something. It's the guy with the blue face, right? Yeah, he's like the principled super strategizing villain. I know he's a fan favorite.
Yeah, so I don't know how they're handling it in Ahsoka. I don't think Ahsoka had anything to do with Timothy Zahn's original book, so just forget that. I mean, Disney has already proven that they will just chuck something out the window that they don't care for anymore, and they will just make whatever they want.
Or if they don't want to pay the rights to.
Right. Pay Timothy Zahn to come on as executive producer or something for his own books, adapt them straight, because, look, those have been around for 30-ish years. everyone loves those books that reads them. And there's some other expanded universe books that fans love. And look, let's start restoring those to the canon instead of throwing them all away. That was really when things went downhill. And I didn't really grow up reading those books, but my friends who did were like, oh, this is it. This is the end, that Disney's doing this. Like they clearly have no connection or clue about this fandom. That would go a long, long way. Just take a couple of those books even. They've already screwed up the canon so much, I don't even care. This doesn't have to match everything else. I mean, hilariously, episode 1 doesn't really match with episode 4, right? There's all these different lines between Obi-Wan episode 4 and Obi-Wan episode 1.
From
and
a certain
2.
point of view, it's the same canon.
Right. And so look, Star Wars has already done this, so no one's going to care. What people care about is a really good story.
That's true. It doesn't mean you have to do a mea culpa for your shows. I realize legally they can't do that. That would count as disparagement. They can't do that. But you can just sort of ignore them. Like no one says that the holiday special is still canon. They don't say it's not. They just kind of move on and ignore it. And like, you didn't see anything. So Zach, you mentioned creative freedom and some respect for like maybe someone like a Timothy Zahn. That leads to a little fan theory I have here. And this is where I pretend to be a studio fixer, safe in my studio as a casual fan at best. But here's a little theory I'd like to posit here. People will say, well, Disney should sell Star Wars. And I don't think they can do that. I mean, who's going to do it? Warner Brothers? Right. Right now, I think the most competent studio right now with the best hits to flops ratios is Universal Studio. Everybody else just seems to be flop after flop after flop. So Disney maybe shouldn't sell Star Wars, but what they could do is spinning off the brand as like a subsidiary, like put in some kind of corporate or creative barriers as if it's an independent studio under the broad Disney oversight. So I'm thinking more like something that would make it feel a little more independent, but with the resources of this giant monolithic company. Have some creative freedom. Like make it more people based. That was with people who actually know what they're doing. You know, the acolyte lady, like that was unfortunately people based in the wrong direction just because she didn't know what she was doing. I don't think it's a problem to say, hey, this is Star Wars by way of so and so. This is Star Wars by way of oh bother, who's the chap with the black hat who did some Mandalorian stuff, who's kind of Dave Filoni. Yeah, I know people are mixed on him, especially with some of the live action stuff, but I know he still has some fan goodwill.
Yeah.
So take the leash off those guys, with the exceptions, obviously, of basic canon. You know, don't gender swap characters or do multiversal nonsense or time travel stuff. I understand that messes with the whole ethos of Star Wars, but at least do something to give the impression of a more independent approach so that you free Star Wars of the impression of corporate shackles. Have people take some big swings like Tony Gilroy is doing with Andor. Which, by the way, opens in basically the heavy PG version of a Star Wars brothel. And there's allusions to things, but people are dressed more modestly than they were in Return of the Jedi. So I found that perfectly fine, but it's a reminder, hey, this is an underworld. There's some bad planets here. That's a bad planet, to quote Captain Mal from Firefly. But Disney needs to get off the Star Wars planet. Just let them spin off by themselves. And that way, if they take a swing and a miss, Disney has plausible deniability. Like this is okay. It's in defense of the corporation. You can say, hey, that was them. Like back in the 90s, Disney owned like a brand called Touchstone Pictures. So if Touchstone released like a Harvey Weinstein movie or something that was nasty, it was just a bunch of boycotting Baptists who got hold of that and said, hey, Disney, this is technically a Disney movie. This is pretty nasty. We're going to boycott you. But Disney in the broader popular culture would have plausible deniability. Oh, that wasn't us. That was just a studio down the road, that we own. So do that with Star Wars. So if Star Wars does something dumb, it doesn't reflect badly on Disney. But if they do something awesome, Disney can step in and go, hey, that's us. That's our good boy. That's Star Wars. Either way, emphasize directors, not directives. Appoint a brain trust to maintain continuity and overall voice. And then Disney, back off from Star Wars. So Zach, as more of a Star Wars fan than I am, before we move on, like what do you think about my little idea here?
Look, I think Star Wars fans have really just moved on. I think honestly, just leaving it alone for a while could be the best thing to do. Just not create anything. Again, going back to Timothy Zahn's books, they could simply just republish those with cool new covers. Maybe do a cool like full cast audiobook or something like that. Just give fans what they've already want and enjoyed, but just in a new way. They could do an anime adaptation of something like that, like where wasn't there a rumor for a while with Lord of the Rings that they were going to do like an anime adaptation that was just, or am I may be getting mixed up with Wheel of Time.
Well, there was a Lord of the Rings anime not too long ago, and
the War of the Rohirrim, but but that was like a new story. I was for some reason I was thinking there was a anime adaptation that was just a straight up story adaptation. No, not
I think that's an AI hallucination.
That might have been. So an anime of the original Star Wars trilogy would be incredible. Because again, with the AI Ghibli filter, whatever, getting to see, Luke and Vader fight as like anime characters, I'd go see that in this theater. I think that'd be awesome. So, that's a way to, again, just win back fans of like, hey, you like this thing. Here's a slightly different version of it, but it's still the same thing. I think a lot of people could get behind that.
Zach, do you think fans could be won back a little bit if Disney did the unthinkable and put Coca-Cola Classic, Star Wars Classic in theaters before the George Lucas special editions of 97?
Oh, man. There is a black market out there for the despecialized edition of the original Star Wars that is very hard to obtain because they do not sell it anywhere. So that actually could be kind of cool if they did that.
Well, Disney, you have ideas from us. Definitely implement these, and then I'll be back. But hey, I'll put my money where my mouth is. I'll be back for Andor season 2 if it's good. I might go see the Mandalorian movie in theaters if you ignore season 3 and go back to what made seasons 1 through 2 great. That Western energy we talked about just a few episodes ago on this podcast. I'm not a Star Wars hater, right? I don't monetize my hate. I want these stories to do well. But I think maybe after Andor season 2 and the Mandalorian movie, just guys, you already took a break from the film releases. Now take a break from all these TV shows. They are not doing anyone any favors, with the exception of Andor, obviously. Well, speaking of dystopian energy there, whether it's in the Star Wars universe or in our universe, let's go to sponsor 3, Inheritance by J.A. Webb. This is perfect for fans of dystopian thrillers like 1984, Brave New World, and The Da Vinci Code, but with a Christian twist. The order has been betrayed. The hunters have been loosed. Father Curtis has forsaken his vows. He has left the order and joined the Seekers, a hidden rebellion dedicated to uncovering the truth long buried by the global church. But walking away from the order does not mean escaping its reach. When word spreads that a copy of the true text, the original 39 books of the Creator, has surfaced on the far side of the world, Curtis, Professor Ruel, and Philip embark on a desperate mission. If they can retrieve the artifact, it could change everything. If they fail, the truth will be lost forever. The war for truth has begun, and the order will not suffer heretics to live. If you like stories of faith, defiance, and the battle against unseen tyranny, you will love Inheritance. This is book 2 of the Seekers series, which releases in May 2025. Book 1, Fragments, is already available. All the links in the show notes. Zach, lest we go into overtime and overstay our welcome, like certain movie franchises, Chapter 3, How to Bring Back the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, this gets a chance of ending on a much more positive note, because I think that Marvel may have already started to turn it around. I think that they were under some corporate diktat there, some mandates to go in more of this more corporate direction, this more politically correct, what we used to call politically correct, progressive element direction. And I think they've already started to turn that around. And my evidence is the Fantastic Four trailer, which I really like. I really like the vibe of that. The director is Matt Shakman. I think it's how you say his name. Director of the WandaVision show, which was also pretty good and wholesome until it turned more corporate Marvel at the end, and that's probably not his fault. But that has a really wholesome vibe, which is basically Tomorrowland with superheroes. It's not in the main MCU continuity. They get their own universe before they blend them together with some future multiverse event. I love the tone of that trailer. I love the wholesomeness of it. I love that it looks like Sue Storm and Reed Richards are married, and they have their own little kind of found family, but because they are married, they're still a traditional couple. And I love that energy. It looks really wholesome. There doesn't seem to be anything objectionable about it. And it looks like this retro futuristic vibe that I personally really like. And the Michael Giacchino theme is just amazing. And they know it too, because the first thing that came out for this movie was not the casting announcements, not the trailer, but the theme, which Marvel never does. They never invest in a theme like that and go, hey, here's this awesome new superhero theme. But it's a really good one. And as a soundtrack aficionado, props to them for doing that, for respecting the creator of just the music theme like that. Of course, MCU most recently, a couple of years ago, did the whole thing with the chairs where they revealed a bunch of cast members for a new Avengers movie called Avengers Doomsday, featuring the return of Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. Not sure how they're going to pull that off.
I don't know what to think of that. That's just
I don't know.
bizarre.
That's what everyone wants to know. Clearly, it's a way to get him back, portraying like a dark alternate.
Tony Stark's evil brother.
Well, I mean, the guy needs to be named Victor Von Doom, or else they'll yell at you for violating comics canon or something. But it could just be in an alternate universe, evil Tony Stark. Who knows? It's a good way to bring him back with an actual acting challenge.
This is like the third Fantastic Four movie in my lifetime. I don't see the
well,
point
they
of
rebooted
it,
a few times. The first two were kind of fun, but kind of have this B movie quality. Back in the I guess it was in the 2000s, and I think there was a little affection for those, but there wasn't a whole lot of thematic depth to them. They were, aside from some exploitation of actors and actresses, from what I remember, they were fairly wholesome. And then there was the middle one, which is all grimdark and stuff, and which is like a Frankenstein's monster of a movie. This looks like a better take on it. I mean, props to Marvel for doing some good stuff here.
Yeah, I know I'm jumping ahead in our notes, but I'm really getting sick of the superhero origin remake. Again, it's like we've had this. They're doing one with Superman now. They've done it with Spider-Man. Like I've lost.
I don't want to hear about Superman Jr. Yeah, not in this dojo. I don't want to offend people.
No one really wants these anymore. And so I think the options are just tell the next story with this franchise and take some risk, like creatively with like, where could the story go? Or just release the original story in like a remastered 4K. Like I would totally buy the original X-Men cartoons from the 90s if they're like remastered in 4K or something. Because again, I would love to own that. I don't want to pay for a streaming service. I just want to watch that, but I want to watch it in better quality than what I grew up with on a little TV, because we all have bigger TVs now. So I think that would go a long way to restoring my goodwill in the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just give me what I already like, but and again in a better format.
So, Zach, this is an interesting test case, and it may illustrate my Pizza Hut problem that I mentioned earlier. Were you not interested then in the critically acclaimed and definitely fan praised X-Men 97 series, a HD continuation of that series?
I had canceled my service well before that came out. So
okay, so I don't know if they can win you back with a remastered version, the original. They seem to have done the best of both worlds, which is respecting the original, but also moving the story forward from a cliffhanger or something that was never resolved.
Again, I don't know, because the only way to watch it, as far as I know, is through the streaming service. So I don't want to pay for
so it's more of a streaming.
service.
Okay, yeah. I got you. Well, I mean, we talked some about that before. Like Disney, like invest in theaters, invest in physical media, and that also will help, I think, improve the brand name.
Well, because again, it's the whole like you will own nothing and you will be happy. Like I'm sick of that trend
people
everywhere.
Are sick of that. Yeah. Well, the pandemic has killed theaters, and oh no, we're going to have to do our own streaming service, and we won't have to share profits with those guys who try to sell you popcorn on weekends. Ew. Like now, go back to local theaters. But Zach, I actually do not think that superhero fatigue is real any more than fantasy fatigue is real. I think that bad or corporate superhero movie fatigue is more accurate. And my reason there is at least based partly on personal evidence. I would, once the poisoning of the brand is recuperated, I would love to go back and watch some of those Marvel films starting in 2008 with Iron Man. I'd love to do a marathon again before they felt so corporate. And I'd even watch the Joss Whedon Avengers movies, even knowing what we know about him being such a cad. I would be okay with that because now the stigma has at least been tempered by better movies, or maybe no movies. Once you get rid of this corporate agenda stuff, or the stuff that smacks of corporate agenda, the girl boss trope and all that, I'd love to go back to these movies, and I would not mind more of them if they were a next generation version of what I loved originally. I don't mind moving forward and reinventing the genre. Otherwise, we wouldn't have liked those original films. But that's what I see Fantastic Four doing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind moving forward either. And I would be willing to give X-Men 97 a chance if I can find out that it's not a subversion of the original. Because I think that's what I and many other fans have, is we have not franchise fatigue or studio fatigue. We have subversion fatigue.
Oh, that's a good phrase.
We're so tired of our favorite stories being totally reinvented according to some totally other weird cultural revolution, worldview and system. So if you can give me the next installment in the story, but that's still true to the original, I'm totally there for that. And again, I think that's just more interesting than going back and doing a prequel or a backstory or remake. Either don't do that or just literally give me the original, just in a better format.
So real Marvel fans, OGs, will remember that Stan Lee used to call fans true believers. And I think that's one thing that we need here. The true believer, and I don't mean a Christian, I mean just a true believer in something beyond oneself. The power of story, the power of fantasy myth, superheroes, whatever. The true believer is the opposite of the subverter. And so what Disney needs to do here is bring in the true believers. And by the way, the true believers may have agendas in their off hours. By all accounts, the guy who did X-Men 97 season 1 is like a practicing homosexual guy. But apparently he loves the series, and fans did not care what he did in his private life. They just cared that he made a good show. And apparently he did, and did not subvert it by all accounts. And I'm basing this on the words of fans on our Lorehaven creative team who enjoyed the X-Men 97 series. Other true believers include the Russo bros, who did the Captain America films, the last two, and the last two Avengers films. They seem to be sincere men who believe in their craft. And I would put this Matt Shakman director as well. I don't remember, Zach, if you saw WandaVision, but that was the original, more positive kickoff to the Marvel on TV idea, the Marvel on streaming. And the first several episodes were really good and really interesting.
I liked it for what it was trying to do. I enjoyed it.
And what matters there is that it showed a healthy respect for the good old things. And for those who hadn't seen it or who forgot, each episode was a journey through a different era of television, and like literally in black and white for the first episode or two. And then it transitioned to a new generation of sitcom. So you go from like the I Love Lucy or Dick Van Dyke Show, and then suddenly you've got color and it's acting a little bit more like the Brady Bunch. And then it jumps forward and you're in All in the Family. And then it jumps forward and you're in a 90s sitcom. And the wardrobes change and the personalities change and the hairstyles change. And it's Wanda and Vision. And you have no idea what in the world is going on until the mystery starts being revealed. So that kind of energy, that's creative. But most importantly, it is anti-subversion. It is subverting the subversions. This wasn't like, these retro attitudes from the old TV shows were pretty dumb, weren't they? Well, thank goodness we're in the modern era now where men and women are equal in their households. It was just a healthy respect for each genre from my memory. And I love that energy. I'd love to see more of that, not just, for other kinds of media, but Marvel, same thing with your, Disney remakes. Respect yourself. Respect the good old things. Ignore what didn't work. You don't have to throw anyone under the bus. But simply moving on from this whole Mary superhero idea, that's a little bit maybe a better term than a girl boss, not just because I made it up. I think just moving on from that will work wonders to erase the stigma. And so will honoring specific directors and artists and composers, not just actors and plot lines, which feels so political. I want to know the directors of these movies. I want their names on the project. I want honor for their vision. Even if it's mixed in with all the restraints of a big franchise like Marvel with all its continuity entanglements. I want to know who the actors are, the directors are. I don't want to have to look for them. I want that to be part of the marketing. Matt Shakman's Fantastic Four or whatever it is, Sam Raimi's Doctor Strange. I want to know that a director's vision is being honored there. A hat tip toward Zack Snyder's Justice League, and that's why I'm glad the Russo bros are all over the marketing for Avengers. Disney knows that people are not just looking for a corporate story. They want the Russo brothers' take on it that worked out so very well in making everything feel so grounded and yet fantastical. That heightened reality. That's why the Captain America films from them and the Avengers films from them are the best of Marvel. And it's no surprise that they had like a Pizza Time interview with Zack Snyder. They apparently think very similarly about the power of myth and storytelling, even if they're in very different superhero franchises there originally. All of that will take big steps toward making stuff feel less corporate and more personal, even with, $300-400 million budgets. By the way, Disney, no more Marvel TV shows. Take a break, all right? Maybe they already are, and I haven't noticed yet. I don't know. But just stop doing the Disney Plus series, other than maybe a one-off special or two. It used to be special, I remember. You could go to the theater and see what looked like a real-life superhero on there with all the special effects and the big budgets and the cool camera angles and the sweeping shots of Spider-Man swinging through the urban jungles of New York City. Make it special again to see, like, golly gee, that's a live superhero, and it's only on the big screen. Again, with the local theater energy. Make it a community event, make it a cultural touch point, and not just something you can catch, when you're sitting in the bathroom watching a superhero on your little tiny phone screen. Big stories, big heroes need big screens. I think those are big ideas to help Disney get back its bigger reputation.
Well, to you, our listener, if you had an infinity gauntlet, how would you try to fix Disney? What would be the Disney movies, the Star Wars shows or movies, or the Marvel stories that you would want to be told? What would they look like? How would those be revealed or created? Send us a note to podcast@lorehaven.com, or you can find us on any social media platform, or just go to the episode page at lorehaven.com and leave your comments there. We would love to hear what you're thinking.
Next on Fantastical Truth, while superheroes might be going stale and franchises flounder, guess what's big on the streaming service menu, boys? Hard to believe, but it's biblical fiction. The cheap evangelical movie curse, I am officially ending it. Thanks not only to The Chosen, but thanks to the giant smash hit House of David on Amazon Prime. With The Chosen and some other great stuff coming up in the Bible verse, and even more adaptations from the Old and New Testaments, these creations are winning millions of fans to their side. Not just Christians, by the way, but people looking for wholesome storytelling that just happens to be made by Christians. And yet these stories, biblical fiction, is also getting a few grumpy Gus evangelical enemies, and I think their arguments deserve to be answered yet again on this show in a different way. Let's ask, what is biblical fiction? What is it for? Why does it exist? And why can it be, especially when made by faithful Bible-believing Christians, absolutely awesome? We're looking for absolutely awesome stories here at Lorehaven by Christian creators. We don't mind talking about the popular culture franchise stuff like we did in this episode every once in a while. But while they are getting their act together, you can find the most amazing, fantastical stories for God's glory by Christian creators at lorehaven.com and from amazing, faithful Christian voices. Don't just look for the cool multi-million-dollar stuff, which may or may not get it right and respect canon and all the rest of it. Look for new, fresh, original voices that will become cool in the future, not just to be popular, but in order to glorify God through our story choices as we continue to seek and find His fantastical truth.